So this is the third video. Again, in case you missed it, the second derivative test is not necessary for you to be successful. It's just another tool you can use. But as I mentioned earlier, you don't have to explain anything on the AP test using the second derivative test. So what you want to do, I mean, it's good practice, let me put it that way, is find your first derivative, minus 12x squared, and set it equal to 0. So what I'm doing is first figuring out what critical numbers I have. X minus 3. So we have x equals 0 and x equals 3. Now, the old way of doing this would have been making a sign chart, and you have a multiplicity of 2, so you need 2 zeros there. So this way works. Okay, and there's no second derivative test either. Let me fix that 3, that's kind of gross. So 0's here, 0 here, negatives to the left of zeros, positives to the right. And we have 3 negatives, so it's negative, 1 negative, so it's negative, and then 3 positives is positive. So we're going from decreasing to increasing. Well, the old school way would have said that at x equals 3 is a relative min. Imagine I put a space in there. There we go. Relative min, because f prime changes from negative to positive. That's acceptable. Okay, you'll get full points there. Otherwise, the second derivative test would be to find the second derivative, which I'm going back up here, and I get 12x squared minus 24x. And now when I do f double prime of 0, well, 0 minus 0 is 0, so that told us nothing. I don't know, sad face. It doesn't tell us anything. That's not a real math thing. Don't write that down on the AP test. But if you do the second derivative and plug in 3, I don't really care. Oops, I have to redo this. I put into the first derivative. You need to plug into the second derivative, 3. I'm getting a calculator out. Just getting my phone calculator. 12 times 9 is 108. And then minus 24 times 3 from right here is 72. 108 minus 72 is 36. But all I really care about is that it's positive. And if we get a positive in the second derivative, it's a relative min. And if you give that explanation, then make sure that you say x equals 3 is a relative min by the second derivative test, or because the second derivative, or you could say it this way, f double prime of 3 is greater than 0, because it's 36, it's positive, is my clue that it's a relative min. Something like that. So again, you don't, like, the second derivative test is extra knowledge. It can help you. If it's one of those things that's too much, and you're getting confused, then by all means you can skip it, But I did want to teach it to you. So the first thing you need to do is identify your derivative. So the derivative of cosine would be negative sine. Set it equal to 0. So I'm finding the critical numbers right now. So add 1, divide by negative 2. That's negative 1/2. So think about the unit circle, or just sine equal negative 1/2. Down here in the third quadrant, that's at theta equals 7 pi over 6. And 11 pi over 6. Don't forget about the fourth quadrant either, all the way over here. And maybe making a sign chart is confusing to you. So that might be why you use the second derivative test. Well, the second derivative would say the derivative of sine is cosine. Well, as you plug in, well, maybe I should have wrote out the ordered pairs. Like this is negative root 3 over 2 negative 1/2, because we want where sine is negative 1/2. And then this one's positive root 3 over 2, negative 1/2. So then if I were to examine the second derivative at 7 pi over 6, well, it's negative 2 times negative root 3 over 2. Well, negative times a negative is positive, so this is bigger than 0. So that means that 7 pi over 6 is my x-coordinate, because it's positive, of a relative min. Because remember, and maybe you forgot from the previous video, that these values are your critical numbers. So if it's concave up, then it's got to be the bottom of the curve. So being a positive second derivative makes it concave up, and it's the bottom of a curve, so it's relative min. And then just to finish this, I think this is the last part of these notes. The second derivative with 11 pi over 6. So it's negative 2 times positive root 3 over 2. Well, negative times a positive is negative. I really don't care that the value is exactly negative root 3. I just care that it's negative. That's my clue that 11 pi over 6 is a relative max. Again, if you watched it from the earlier video, a negative second derivative is concave down, so that must happen at the top of the curve, making it a max. So I probably should have highlighted or wrote out. If for some reason they ask for the ordered pair, you would have to go back to the original problem. So like, for instance, if they ask for what the y value is of the relative max, you'd have to go back up here. I honestly, maybe I'll just go to the answer key and see what they write down. Yeah, all the answer key does is it talks about, because f double prime of x is greater than 0 at, it's theta, not x, at theta equals 7 pi over 6. So again, if I actually wanted what the min value is, you'd be plugging in for both these thetas, that value. Otherwise, I think you guys are ready for the homework. These 3 videos have been long enough as it is. And there you go.